Hey everyone, it's Dr. Nightstare. Glad you're here. Before we get into it, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Quick question before we start. Where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Alright, let's get settled. Get comfortable, let your body relax, and just take it easy. I often think about the world outside my windows, a place of constant noise and pointless hurry, and I am glad I do not have to be a part of it anymore. People rush through their days chasing things that do not matter, building walls around themselves with their worries and their anger, forgetting the simple truth of what life should be. They live in a sickness, I believe, a quiet desperation that they never truly acknowledge, and they continue hurting each other without ever truly seeing the damage they inflict. I chose this quiet existence many years ago, retreating from the bitterness and the empty pursuits that seem to consume everyone else. Here, surrounded by the only things that truly make sense, I have found a lasting contentment, an honest joy. Clowns are different. They understand the absurdity of it all. Their painted smiles, their exaggerated movements, these are not disguises, but rather honest expressions of a deeper truth. They show us that it is all a show, a grand spectacle, and that laughter is the only honest response to the chaos. They offer pure emotion without the complicating layers of betrayal or pretense that define human interaction. I have dedicated my life to understanding that truth, to collecting these beautiful, silent teachers who remind me every day of what I left behind. This house, secluded and peaceful, is not just a home, but a gallery of pure happiness. My collection spans every wall in this room, carefully arranged on polished shelves and pedestals. There are porcelain clowns with chipped ruffles, their faces eternally amused, standing next to wooden figures with articulated limbs, poised as if ready to tumble. Fabric clowns, stuffed with forgotten dreams, lean against more modern plastic creations, each one unique but all sharing that essential spirit. A small, hand-carved jester from Bavaria, its cap bells still, sits beside a large, almost life-sized clown doll with real human hair, a magnificent piece I found at an estate sale years ago. Its eyes, made of clear glass, seem to follow me as I move about the room, always watching, always understanding. Other clowns include a miniature circus troupe, perfectly posed, and a series of painted portraits depicting various famous clowns of old, each brushstroke capturing their essence. Each piece tells a story, a chapter in my ongoing education about joy, about the simple honesty of a laugh. This room provides all the company I could ever need, a quiet audience for my thoughts. Outside, the summer sun shines bright on the tall grass, but inside, here with my friends, everything feels exactly as it should be, perfectly still and perfectly mine. The afternoon sun beat down on my long driveway, making the air ripple above the gravel. I watched the shimmer from my window, content in my cool house, when a bright yellow and red appeared at the end of the lane. A man stood there, unmistakably a clown, his face painted white with a wide red smile and round red cheeks. His yellow jumpsuit stood out against the green of the tall grass, and a bright red nose sat perfectly on his face. He carried a deflated balloon animal in one hand, its limp form swaying with the slight breeze. My heart gave a little jump, a quiet thrill stirring inside me. A real clown here at my home. I walked to the front door, my steps light, opening it to the intense summer warmth. The clown, seeing me, offered a small wave. "Excuse me, sir," he called out, his voice a little hoarse from the heat. "I seem to be a bit lost. My name is Joe Jangles, and I am trying to find the Peterson residence for a birthday party." He gestured vaguely down the road. "Do you know if I am anywhere near it?" His eyes, beneath the painted brows, looked tired but friendly. "Oh, no," I replied, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "You are quite a way off from the Petersons. They live on the other side of town entirely." I felt a sudden rush of hospitality. The man looked parched and hot. "Please, it is far too warm to stand out there. Come in for a moment, Joe Jangles. I can give you some water and better directions from inside." I stepped back, holding the door open wide, inviting the cheerful, misplaced figure into my peaceful world. He looked relieved and gratefully stepped over the threshold. I gestured towards a comfortable armchair among my collection, and Joe Jangles gratefully settled down. I poured him a glass of cool water from the kitchen, and we spoke about the summer heat and the peculiar nature of children's parties. He told me he enjoyed making children laugh, finding a simple purity in their joy. "I've been with Fun Time Affairs for about 2 months now," he said, taking a long drink. "It's a good company, much better than my last gig." The casual mention of his employment, the length of time, brought a cold clarity to my thoughts. 2 months. That was the missing piece. The pattern solidified in my mind. My hand went to the polished head of a display hammer I kept nearby, a tool for precise adjustments to my porcelain figures. Its weight felt familiar in my grip. Joe Jangles chuckled, about to tell another anecdote, when I brought the hammer down. It landed with a dull sound, a wet impact against his painted skull. His body slumped forward, silent and still, the water glass spilling across the rug. The red smile on his face seemed to deepen in death, a final, unseeing grin. I cleaned the spilled water. Joe Jangles slumped in the armchair, his red smile fixed and lifeless. I lifted him from the chair, carrying him to the old root cellar. There, I dug a shallow grave. I covered his bright costume with soil, smoothing the dirt. No one would find him. His yellow car sat on the gravel. I drove it miles down the logging road to the abandoned quarry. I backed the car to the edge, letting it roll silently into the deep water. The quiet splash faded. The surface showed nothing. My collection felt incomplete without a new figure. As Joe Jangles was not a display piece, my experience confirmed they began with good intentions, but they changed, growing corrupt. 2 months was the usual time before they decayed. I needed a fresh clown, untainted. I found a new agency online, Smile Makers Entertainment. Their website showed cheerful pictures. I typed a request for a clown to entertain at a small private gathering, giving my address and a preferred time. I specified a new clown, one with a clear, honest smile, emphasizing a fresh face. I made the fee generous to attract the person I sought. The trap was set. I returned to my room, waiting among my quiet collection. The large clown doll's glass eyes watched me. Outside, the summer sun dipped lower. Another day would bring another clown, another opportunity to find a display piece, untarnished and true, before the world could spoil it. I felt a rising peace. My collection would grow. The stale air of St. Ignatius's 6th floor always tasted of forgotten things and disinfectant. My task was simple enough on paper, clearing out decades of neglect from the locked psychiatric unit. I moved through the empty patient rooms and nurses' stations, cataloging and discarding what remained. Everything here felt heavy with time, from the yellowed linoleum floors to the peeling paint on the walls. Most of the clutter was mundane. Stacks of outdated medical records, broken equipment, and forgotten personal effects in various states of decay. One afternoon, tucked behind a stack of patient charts from the early 90s, I found an old desktop computer. It was a bulky beige machine, its monitor screen opaque with grime. Next to it, almost an afterthought, lay a small black flash drive. The drive felt out of place, a piece of modern technology amidst the relics. When I tried to access it on my laptop, It prompted for an unknown encryption key, Curiosity 1, and I powered up the ancient desktop. After a few agonizing minutes, the machine sputtered to life. The flash drive clicked into its port, and a folder materialized on the screen, labeled simply Journal Jacobi. Inside, dated entries stretched back years. The first lines were immediate, unfiltered, and deeply unsettling. I sat there, the fluorescent lights buzzing over my head, compelled to read every word. It wasn't just a job anymore. I knew I had to transcribe everything. My first night shift as an RN on St. Ignatius's locked 6th floor felt like an initiation into a separate world. The hospital already carried a tired weight during daylight hours, but the night brought an altogether different kind of pressure. They had shown me the emergency protocols and patient files, yet no instruction manual could prepare a person for the actual noise that filled those long hours, the sudden shouts, the constant weeping that echoed from behind locked doors. Mr. Henderson, a man convinced the walls whispered secrets, kept me on edge, and late into my shifts, the building's old pipes and groans began to sound almost like voices. Administration offered little practical support, only binders full of regulations that quickly disintegrated under the weight of real patient crises. One memorable evening, Mrs. Peterson attempted to consume her bedsheet, insisting it was a rare delicacy meant only for her. I learned to navigate these situations not with protocol, but with a growing, instinctive understanding. The lack of resources, the systemic neglect, the sheer strangeness of it all slowly became my daily reality. Despite the chaos, or perhaps because of it, I discovered a strange rhythm here. The patients, many truly forgotten by their families and the wider world, started to make a unique kind of sense to me. Their fears, their delusions, their distinct versions of truth began to feel clearer than the ordered world outside. This unit, with all its decay and its deep sadness, had somehow taken hold of me, grounding me in a way I had not anticipated. I understood then that I belonged in these halls, that my purpose lay here with these people. St. Ignatius was not merely a structure of brick and mortar, it was a living, breathing entity, one that held you within its decaying embrace. A persistent dampness seeped into the very bones of the building, clinging to the walls, to the worn linoleum, and to the skin. It made every surface feel cool and slick, a constant clammy touch. The hospital always carried a particular scent, a deep, pervasive smell of old concrete, wet earth, and something vaguely organic that suggested constant rot, mingled with a sharp tang of antiseptic that failed to mask the underlying decay. This smell was not just in the air, it felt like it had been absorbed into the very stone, an intrinsic part of the hospital's being. The building generated sounds, a steady symphony of unseen forces at work. Pipes groaned and shuddered deep within the walls, their protests echoing through empty shafts. The old elevator cage, rarely used, shifted and creaked with a low metallic complaint that resonated from the ground floor up to our unit. At night, the entire structure seemed to settle with a deep, guttural sigh that vibrated up through the soles of my shoes, making the floorboards tremble slightly. These were not just the noises of an old building. They felt deliberate, a constant, low-level communication from something vast and ancient. The windows, thick and old, were particularly unsettling. Their glass had warped over the decades, distorting the world outside into a wavy, indistinct blur. From the ground floor, trees appeared to ripple like water, and passing cars elongated into impossible shapes. As you ascended the 6 stories, the distortions grew more severe. On the 6th floor, my unit, the view outside transformed into a grotesque panorama, with streetlights stretching into impossibly tall, shimmering pillars, and the distant city lights fracturing into scattered, desperate embers. The external world seemed twisted and broken through the hospital's eyes. My unit, this 6th floor, possessed an especially heavy presence. The air felt thicker there, carrying a distinct weight that pressed down on your chest. It was as though the very walls held a watchful tension, a collective breath, always waiting. The decay here felt more pronounced, more intentional, like a slow, deliberate consumption. Every creak, every groan, every damp patch seemed to emanate with a particular purpose, creating a pervasive sense of dread. The 6th floor did not merely house the patients, it watched them, it listened to them, and it slowly, relentlessly, drew them further into its own strange, dying heart. It held us all within its grasp, waiting. This place always pulls at me, its damp chill and its constant sigh. Yet even here, on the 6th floor, within the hospital's slow, deliberate consumption, there exist certain constants, certain anchor points that defy the overall rot. I spend so many hours observing the others, charting their decline, documenting the strange patterns their minds create, the endless loop of their fears and their hopes. Many of them simply fade into the background noise, their individual tragedies swallowed by the building's greater presence. But Mrs. Hancock is different. She is not a shadow or a fading echo within these walls. She stands out, a vivid point amidst the pervasive decay. Her presence feels like a necessary counterpoint, a distinct light in the oppressive gloom that seems to press down on every other soul here. My days, my long nights, often feel defined by the time I spend with her, by the quiet moments we share. Her clarity, her strange calm, provides a balance against the encroaching strangeness of everything else. It truly grounds me. There is much to say about Mrs. Hancock and my relationship with her. I will dedicate the next entries to detailing her particular story, her impact on me, and what she truly means to this place. I found him at the pier, the one we used to frequent before everything fell apart. The smell of the ocean wind whipped around me. Braxton stood with his back to me, casting a line into the dark water, oblivious to my presence. My heart beat a rapid rhythm against my ribs, a familiar pain mixed with something colder and harder. I took a deep breath, the salt stinging my nose, and finally spoke his name. Braxton. He flinched, the fishing rod nearly slipping from his grasp. He spun around, his eyes wide and disbelieving. The color drained from his face as he recognized me. Many questions filled his gaze, but only one word escaped his lips. "Sarah?" I nodded. The wind pulled at my hair, a restless force, and my emotions churned. He took a hesitant step toward me, then stopped. He looked older and tired, lines marked around his eyes that I did not remember. "Where have you been?" His voice was a raw whisper. "That does not matter now." My voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil I felt. "We need to talk." He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing before he found words. I do not know what to say. I thought you were gone for good. Everyone thought you were. I am here now." I crossed my arms. "And I know about Chloe. And your child." His expression darkened. He looked away, toward the churning water. "It is not what you think, Sarah." "Is it not?" I said. "A happy family. A wife. A child." He shook his head slowly, his shoulders slumping. "We are not married. Chloe and I, we never married." This was new information. I let the fact settle. "Then what are you?" He sighed, a heavy sound filled with regret. "We are together, for the sake of the child. But it is not a real relationship. It is strained. Always has been since you left." "And the child?" I kept my voice even, though a thrill passed through me. This was all developing as I hoped. He ran a hand through his hair, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. The baby, it was unexpected. An accident. We were both disoriented after you disappeared. She was there. It just happened. My gaze remained fixed on his profile, memorizing every nuance of his distress. So, you built a life out of convenience. He turned back to me, his eyes pleading. No, not convenience. More like trying to rebuild my life, trying to move on. But it was always a constant reminder that you were not there. His voice cracked. I know I messed up, Sarah. I should have waited. I should have looked harder. I should have looked harder. I should have never. He trailed off, his jaw tight. Never what, Braxton? I prompted, my voice soft. He took another step closer, his eyes searching mine. I never stopped loving you, Sarah. Not for a single day. Not for a single moment. Chloe knows it. She hates it. She sees it in my eyes every time I look at her, every time I look at our child. It is not right. It is not fair to anyone. His confession lingered between us, mixing with the sharp scent of the sea. I watched him, a complicated mix of triumph and the old hurt twisted within me. He was broken, just as I intended. His words, though painful reminders of my own abandonment, were also powerful tools. You still love me, I repeated, letting the words roll off my tongue, testing their weight. He reached for my hand, his fingers brushing against mine. More than anything, more than I ever thought possible. You were my world, Sarah, and when you vanished, my world broke apart. I tried to rebuild, but I used the wrong pieces. I pulled my hand back gently. And what about your child? What about Chloe? I am a father, he said. His voice showed anguish. I will always be there for my child. But Chloe, she is not you. She is not you. She never could be. It is an empty existence living with someone when your heart belongs to another. I studied his face. The raw honesty marked his features. The desperation in his eyes was real. He believed every word. This was not an act. This was genuine regret, genuine longing, and it was exactly what I needed. So, all this time, I began, my voice a quiet accusation, you have been living a lie. You have been pretending to be happy, pretending to be whole, when you were really just waiting for me to reappear. He nodded, his head bowed. Every day, every night. I searched for you in every face, in every crowd. I hoped for a sign, a whisper. And now you are here. He looked up, a glimmer of desperate hope in his eyes. Can we fix this, Sarah? Can we go back? I took a slow breath, letting the moment stretch. There is no going back, Braxton. Not to what we were. Too much has happened. Too many people are involved now. I watched his face fall, the hope dimming. But, I added, a calculated pause before the word, things can change. Truths can be revealed. And sometimes, those revelations can set things right. He looked at me, a question in his eyes, a spark reignited. What do you mean? I mean, I said, stepping closer, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone, that your life with Chloe, this strained relationships and unexpected child, it is all built on an unstable base. And I know some things that could make it all fall apart. His gaze sharpened, a mix of fear and intrigue replacing the despair. He wanted to know. He wanted Chloe gone. He wanted me back. He was a perfect target. What do you know? He asked, his voice barely audible above the crashing waves. I smiled then, a small, knowing smile that did not reach my eyes. Everything, Braxton. Everything. I decided to make my move quickly. Braxton's vulnerability was a weapon I would now wield against Chloe. I found her number easily, buried deep in Braxton's old phone records. My message was curt, direct, demanding a meeting about Braxton's immediate future. I knew she would come. Her world revolved around controlling him, or at least the illusion of it. We met at a quiet cafe, a place chosen for its sparse clientele and muted lighting, perfect for a private demolition. Chloe arrived late, her usual practiced composure slightly frayed. She wore a dress that emphasized a figure I now noticed was a little softer, less taut than before, but I reserved that observation for later. Her eyes, usually sharp and possessive, held a flicker of apprehension. She sat opposite me, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "What do you want, Sarah?" Her voice was brittle, an attempt at defiance that did not quite land. I leaned forward, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. "I want to talk about Braxton, of course, and about the fragile little life you have built around him." Her knuckles whitened. "There is nothing fragile about my life. Braxton and I have a family." "Do you?" I let the question hang in the air, a deliberate accusation. "He told me a different story, Chloe. A very different story." Her gaze hardened. "Braxton would never discuss our private life with you." "Oh, but he did," I corrected, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He told me everything. He confessed how your child was an accident, a consequence of your disorientation, a desperate grab for stability after I disappeared. He called it unexpected, an empty existence. Those were his words, Chloe, not mine." Her eyes widened, a flicker of genuine hurt cutting through her defiance. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Her composure was already cracking. "You trapped him, did you not?" I continued, pressing my advantage. "You found him broken, grieving, and you offered him a convenient distraction, a placeholder for the life he truly wanted. A life with me." A flush spread across her cheeks. She gripped the table edge, her fingers digging into the wood. "That is a lie. He loves our child. He chose me." "Did he?" I pulled out my phone, a small, black device that held her entire world in its memory. "I have something I think you need to hear." I pressed play. Braxton's voice filled the quiet cafe, raw and broken. I remembered its exact timbre from the pier. "I never stopped loving you, Sarah. Not for a single day. Not for a single moment. Chloe knows it. She hates it. She sees it in my eyes every time I look at her, every time I look at our child. It is not right. It is not fair to anyone." Chloe's breath hitched. Her face, already pale, lost all remaining color. Her eyes were fixed on the phone, wide with horror and disbelief. Braxton's voice continued, a steady stream of devastating truths. "I know I messed up, Sarah. I should have waited. I should have looked harder. I should have never." His voice cracked. "I never stopped loving you, Sarah." And then, the most potent words, delivered with undeniable pain and longing. "You were my world, Sarah. And when you vanished, my world broke apart. I tried to rebuild, but I used the wrong pieces. It is an empty existence, living with someone when your heart belongs to another." I stopped the recording. The subsequent silence felt deafening in the cafe. Chloe sat frozen, utterly consumed by despair. Her lower lip trembled. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. A last, desperate attempt at control. The air around her shimmered with her unspoken fear, a tangible presence I could almost taste. "He wants me back, Chloe," I stated, my voice calm, almost sympathetic. "He said you were never me. He said it was an empty existence with you." She finally found her voice, a choked whisper. "No, that is not true. You manipulated him. You preyed on his weakness." "Did I?" I raised an eyebrow. "Or did I simply give him the opportunity to speak his truth? A truth he has been living every day. A truth you have witnessed every time he looked at you." every time he looked at your child. I watched her crumple, the last vestiges of her composure dissolving. She started to sob, quiet, broken sounds that ripped through the cafe's stillness. Her shoulders shook. I let her cry for a moment, savoring the sound of her unraveling. This was more satisfying than I had imagined. Her tears were a testament to my success, each drop a confirmation of my power. Her pathetic grief only fueled my resolve. "And now," I said, my voice barely audible above her sobs, but sharp enough to cut through them, "it seems you are considering another attempt to solidify your hold on him." She flinched, her head snapping up. Her tear-streaked eyes met mine, filled with a raw, new terror. She subconsciously placed a hand over her abdomen, a gesture that spoke volumes. The loose dress, the preference for water I had noted when she arrived, the slight pallor that was not just from distress, it all clicked into place. My words had hit their mark precisely. "You truly believe another child will make him forget me?" I continued, my voice laced with false concern. "Another accident to bind him to an empty existence. Do you think that is fair to this new life, Chloe? To bring a child into a world where their father's heart belongs to someone else?" Her face was utterly ravaged. The tears flowed freely now, mixing with snot, tracing paths down her cheeks. Her body shook with uncontrollable sobs. She tried to speak, but only fractured gasps escaped her lips. She pressed her hands to her mouth, stifling a wail. She looked utterly destroyed, her world in irreparable pieces around her. The sight of her profound misery filled me with a cold satisfaction, a validation of every calculated step I had taken. "What did you expect, Chloe?" I asked, rising slowly from my seat. "You built your life on unstable ground, on a love you took from me. Did you truly think it would stand forever?" She stared at me, her eyes glazed with agony and a dawning, terrible understanding. The pain in her gaze was palpable, her entire being radiating despair. Her stability, her false contentment, had been meticulously stripped away. She was broken, her spirit crushed by the revelations, left with the echo of Braxton's true feelings and the stark realization of her impending future. I turned and walked away, leaving her weeping silently at the table. My work was complete. The devastation was perfect. The coffee shop's quiet atmosphere now felt thick with her unspoken despair. I walked away from the cafe, leaving Chloe to her wreckage. Her cries still echoed in my mind, a sweet melody of triumph. She sat broken, her hands clutching her swollen belly, her face a map of despair. The knowledge of her new pregnancy was a potent weapon, twisting the knife of Braxton's confession deeper into her wounded psyche. She would not recover from this. Her world had fractured, and the pieces lay scattered around her, sharp and unforgiving. My gaze drifted to my phone. One more piece remained to be moved on the board. I found an old burner phone, one I had kept for untraceable communications, and typed a short message. "Meet me by the old lighthouse at sunset. There are things you need to understand about Chloe. Come alone." I sent it to Braxton's primary number, deleting the message from the burner's outbox immediately after. The anonymous sender added a layer of intrigue, ensuring he would come. He was desperate for answers, for truth, for me. He would not hesitate. The lighthouse stood sentinel against the fading light, its beam sweeping across the darkening sea. I arrived early, finding a secluded spot among the craggy rocks, just far enough to observe without being seen. The wind carried the scent of salt and the distant cries of gulls. A chill permeated the air. I pulled my jacket tighter. This was the final act, the culmination of everything. I pictured Chloe's face, contorted with rage, the fragile hope of her future crushed beneath the weight of Braxton's undeniable truth. She would be a volatile, desperate creature now. Soon, a car approached, its headlights cutting through the gloom. Braxton emerged, looking around with a hesitant expression. He walked towards the base of the lighthouse, his silhouette stark against the last vestiges of twilight. He seemed uncertain, scanning the empty landscape, a question etched on his face. I watched him, a predator observing its prey, waiting for the trap to spring. A second car arrived then, its tires crunching on the gravel. It was Chloe's vehicle. My heart beat a steady, excited rhythm. My calculated manipulation had worked. She had followed him. Her rage would be a wildfire now, consuming everything in its path. She would see his desperation, his willingness to meet a mysterious messenger about her, and her shattered world would finally explode. Chloe stepped from her car, her figure a trembling silhouette against the fading light. Her movements were jerky, agitated. She stopped toward Braxton, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Her hair was wild around her face, her dress disheveled. She looked like a woman driven to the brink, teetering on the edge of reason. Her eyes, even from my distance, radiated a raw, blinding fury. Braxton turned, surprise registering on his face as he saw her. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He took a step back, sensing the danger in her posture. "Braxton," her voice ripped through the air, raw and laced with pain. "You lying bastard. You said you loved me. You said we were a family." "Chloe, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low, attempting to soothe her. "This is not what you think. Is it not?" She screamed, her voice cracking. "You are meeting her, are you not? After everything she said, after everything you said, you still come running." She lunged forward, a primal scream tearing from her throat. Her hands flew, striking Braxton's face with surprising force. He stumbled back, caught off guard. She followed, a whirlwind of uncontrolled violence. She clawed at his shirt, tearing the fabric, her nails raking across his skin. He raised his arms, trying to shield himself, but her fury was relentless. "You took everything from me," she shrieked, her voice thick with tears and hate. "You ruined my life. You ruined our baby's life." Her words, sharp and desperate, hung in the cold air. The new life within her, the one she had tried to use to bind him, now seemed to fuel her despair and anger. She was utterly undone. She landed another blow to his chest, pushing him hard against the rough stone of the lighthouse. He grunted in pain. Braxton finally caught her wrists, trying to restrain her without hurting her. "Chloe, stop. You are pregnant. You need to calm down." His words seemed to incite her further. She writhed against his grip, kicking out wildly. Her foot connected with his leg, and he winced, his hold loosening. She pulled free, tears streaming down her face, her eyes filled with a desperate, destructive rage. She picked up a loose, jagged rock from the ground. "You will not have her," she sobbed, raising the rock above her head. "You will not go back to her. I will not let you." Braxton's eyes widened in horror. He threw himself forward, trying to disarm her, but he was too late. The rock descended, a swift, brutal arc. It struck him hard on the side of his head with a sickening thud. He cried out, a guttural sound of pain, and crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The rock clattered beside him. Chloe stood over him, panting, her chest heaving. Her face was a mask of shock and terror, the violence draining out of her, replaced by dawning horror at what she had done. She stared at Braxton's still form, his blood already beginning to darken the damp earth beneath his head. Her hands flew to her mouth, stifling a scream, her body trembling uncontrollably. I watched it all unfold, a perfect tragedy playing out beneath the lighthouse beam. The cold satisfaction spread through me, warming me from the inside out. Chloe, broken and desperate, had done my bidding. Braxton, the man who had abandoned me, lay broken. This was justice. This was everything I had planned. The chaos I had orchestrated was complete, and I had emerged untouched. I turned and walked away, disappearing into the cover of the darkness, leaving them both to their consequences. My work was finally done. The screen door slammed, breaking the evening's calm. My teacup rattled against its saucer on the kitchen table. I walked toward the front door, expecting to scold the neighborhood kids. My hand reached for the handle but stopped inches from the wood. Standing on my porch, illuminated by the dim porch light, was a girl. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hair was matted, falling across a gaunt face. Her eyes, wide and red-rimmed, met mine. It was Sarah. My Sarah. 5 years she had been gone. An impossible joy mixed with a cold disbelief held me still. My heart hammered against my ribs. I saw weariness on her face, tears glistening on her cheeks. She was here. My hand dropped. "Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a breath. Her head dipped once, a tiny movement. Her voice came out rough and ragged, as if she had not spoken in years. "Mom," she said, just that one word. Her eyes flickered past me, scanning the yard and then the empty street. A shiver ran through her body. I reached for her, my fingers brushing her arm. She flinched away, not much, but enough for me to see it. Her gaze darted back to the darkness beyond my porch light. "Get in," I said, urgency seizing me. I pulled her by the arm, drawing her into the house. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood there, my back against the wood, watching her. Her eyes moved quickly, from the windows to the door, then back again. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. She held her arms tightly across her chest. "What happened?" I asked, my own breath catching in my throat. I needed to know everything. She took a small step back. Her eyes, wide and fearful, locked onto mine for a moment before they glanced again at the front door. "I escaped," she whispered, the words thin and sharp in the quiet room. I nodded slowly. The urgency that had seized me moments before vanished. My hand settled on the door handle, cool beneath my palm. I looked at her, my voice even. "Yes, I know, honey." Sarah's wide, fearful eyes studied my face. I continued, "But I moved houses." The words were simple, declarative. Sarah's breathing hitched, a sharp sound in the small room. Her gaze darted from the window to the door, then back to my face. The fear in her eyes twisted, becoming something else, something I recognized. Her lips parted slightly. No sound came out. She stared at me, her chest rising and falling quickly. I once observed human behavior, particularly the choices made at critical junctures, as a complex process influenced by countless variables, each contributing to an individual's unique trajectory. Now I understand a powerful motivation, ultimately simple, steers every action, a force operating beneath the conscious mind. It is an instinctual gravitation towards comfort, a force shaping even the most significant decisions without conscious acknowledgement. This comfort is not merely the absence of pain or the presence of luxury. It encompasses the familiar, the predictable, the known path. We seek what feels familiar. We move towards what brings ease. We instinctively avoid anything promising distress or uncertainty, preferring the established rhythms of our existence. This extends beyond simple physical sensations. It encompasses emotional calm, a sense of established order, and the preservation of our cherished attachments. Each person, when confronted with diverging paths, assesses which option promises a greater measure of safety and peace, even if only fleeting or deceptive. This intrinsic drive directs all lives, building perceived stability one decision at a time, and it directed my own life, dictating my every step. Then a sudden splintering crash tore through the quiet air. A dark form filled the doorway, blocking the last sliver of light from the corridor. He wore a featureless mask, devoid of any discernible expression, yet radiating a cold certainty that froze my breath within my chest. A large knife, gleaming, appeared in his hand, its sharp edge catching the sparse illumination. He surveyed the room slowly, his head turning with an almost mechanical precision, his gaze moving over the overturned furniture and broken glass. It was a deliberate, calm assessment before his eyes finally settled on me. An almost clinical detachment marked his posture, in the way he held the weapon, in the way he simply stood and observed the wreckage he had created. He spoke, his voice modulated and flat, stripped of any individual warmth or inflection. "You understand comfort, don't you? You grasp its pervasive influence on every decision, every instinctual draw. Now, it is your turn to make a choice guided solely by that understanding." The words directly referenced the very concept I had just considered, a horrifying confirmation of its brutal utility. He gestured with the knife towards the corner where my father lay groaning, a dark stain spreading across his shirt, the breath coming in ragged gasps. Then he gestured towards my mother, huddled nearby, trembling, her shoulders shaking, her face streaked with tears. "One of them offers you comfort. One of them offers you comfort. One of them does not. You will choose." My eyes darted between them, a sickening weight settling in my stomach as the masked figure waited. My father lay in the corner, a choked moan escaping his lips, his chest rising and falling with difficulty, the blood on his shirt spreading slowly. He looked up at me, his eyes clouded with pain and a desperate plea I could not process. My mother huddled closer to the wall, her body shaking without control, her hands clasped tightly together near her mouth, her face pale and wet. She whispered my name, a broken sound that tore through me, and her gaze held pure terror. The man's words echoed, stark and absolute. "Choose." He offered no explanation, no further instruction, only the cold imperative that I decide which parent provided comfort and which did not. The blade in his hand caught the dim light, a point of sharp, metallic focus in the chaos. I saw the tremor in my mother's shoulders and the way my father's jaw clenched with agony. Their very presence, their suffering, created a suffocating pressure. Yet the man claimed one offered comfort. This was not a choice between easy paths. It was a tearing of my very being. My mind raced, searching for an escape, for a loophole, for any way to deny the reality of his demand. There was no comfort in either sight, only abject fear and profound despair. I stood frozen, my limbs refusing to move, my voice caught in my throat. My mother's eyes, wide and filled with tears, begged me for life. My father's labored breathing was a constant reminder of his injury. The man simply stood, his head tilted slightly, observing my agony with unnerving patience, allowing the impossible decision to ripen in the air between us. The knife remained steady in his hand, pointing at nothing specific yet menacing everything. The man's head tilted further, a calculated movement. His voice, flat and unfeeling, cut into the air. "The moment of truth arrives. Choose your comfort, or choose nothing and watch everything disappear." My gaze swung back to my mother, her face contorted, a silent plea. Then to my father, his breathing now shallow, barely there. The knife remained steady, catching the dim light. My body locked. My muscles refused to obey any command. The air pressed down, suffocating me with the burden of that unmade decision. My chest felt hollow, an aching emptiness. My heart pulsed, but it felt disconnected. The faces of my parents blurred, merging into a single image of desperate need, a demand I could not fulfill. The knife did not move. Their eyes did not leave mine. I simply stood there, incapable of action, broken by the choice that was no choice. Humans told stories about monsters, tales of fear and hidden horrors, but they rarely understood the true nature of the creatures they imagined, believing in simple fictions that offered a false sense of security. Creatures in this world did not merely lurk in shadows, but commanded attention, flaunting their might with a cruel skill. I have watched Mothmen stride into bustling city squares, their dark wings beating slow, deliberate rhythms that created a strong wind. They chose public spaces to assert dominion, their glowing red eyes fixing on crowds with arrogance. Their appearance caused mass panic, an orchestration of chaos. Zombies were intelligent beings, embracing their decay and using it as a weapon. They displayed their exposed bones and rotted flesh. I once observed an evolved specimen orchestrate a ritualistic gathering. Its broken jaw emitted commands, directing hordes of ghouls with precision. They consumed from a calculated desire to erase, to leave no trace. Werewolves defied silver bullets and moon cycles. Their transformations were acts of will, moments of primal power. They sought out silver to incorporate it into their fur. The metal glinted under the moonlight as they stalked their prey, a demonstration of control. It was a display, a declaration that their weakness had become a tool for intimidation. Vampires, blood drinkers, welcomed the sun's gaze. They reveled in it, stepping into the daylight, their skin shimmering in sunlight. They stood on rooftops, above human streets, letting the sun illuminate their elegant forms. This act stripped away their significant weakness. They used it as a brazen statement of dominance. These creatures were sophisticated, deliberate, and cruel. I have shown you the spectacle, the elaborate displays of fear staged by those who crave your direct attention. They need you to see them, to know their names, to tremble at their presence. This is their way of claiming power, a performance for the terrified. They make themselves known. But what if power did not require such a stage? What if true dominance required no audience at all? You have witnessed what others do to assert their will, their crude declarations of authority. Can you even begin to comprehend the methods of a kind that leaves no trace, a kind that does not need you to acknowledge its existence to shape your world? There is a different, deeper assertion of will, one that operates without fanfare, without any visual proof. Our kind demonstrates its power through absolute control, through an unacknowledged dominion. You wondered about our control. Our dominion is not a performance. It is a reality forged over centuries. We are the true power. We have always been the power. The ravenous intelligence you observed in the undead, their organized hunger, we locked it away. Their broken jaws now emit no commands. Their hordes move only within the confines we designed for them, deep beneath the earth, never again to threaten the surface world. They serve no purpose now, except as a sealed-off problem. The Mothmen, with their arrogant displays in city squares, now beat their wings in empty spaces, far from human eyes. We drove them into the desolate corners of this planet, forcing them to hide, to shrink their once vast territories. They no longer orchestrate panic. They flee from our presence. The werewolves, those who proudly wore silver as a testament to their strength, learned a different kind of control. We tamed their primal transformations, redirecting their power. They guard places now, or act as enforcers for our will, their ferocity now a leash we hold. They obey. The vampires, those sun-defying, daylight-walking creatures, believed themselves untouchable. We found them all. The last of them exist in cages of our design, their eternal lives now an eternal imprisonment. The sun they once flaunted now shines only on their steel walls, a constant reminder of their captivity. All of this happened without your knowledge. You lived your lives, telling your silly stories, unaware that your monsters were systematically removed, one by our quiet hand. We cleansed your world of threats you barely understood, threats you no longer remember. You will never again encounter one of them. No vampire will taste your blood. No Mothman will darken your skies. No werewolf will hunt your nights. We cleansed your world of such threats. You walk secure because we decide your security. You live unburdened by fear of the unknown because we removed the unknown, You believe yourselves free, but your world is entirely ours. We stand behind every shadow, within every thought, orchestrating every moment of your existence. You are safe only because we permit it. You are ours. The world outside raged. Rain sheeted down the windows in thick, unbroken rivers, each gust of wind a physical blow against the old house. The whole structure creaked and shook around me, a steady noise that kept the night company. I walked through the living room, past the dark television screen, and felt a strange calm settle deep inside my chest. This was not a night for company, nor a night for stillness. It was a night for the storm. People always talked about being alone in an empty house during such weather, but that thought never held any weight with me. This space was mine, its solitude, a known quantity, a comfortable truth that intensified with the weather's violence just beyond the glass. A jagged flash of lightning split the darkness, bathing the yard in a white glow for a split second. In that brief light, something solid appeared by the old oak tree, a block of deep shadow against the dark night. My breath caught, but then the darkness swallowed it again, leaving only the rain and wind. It was nothing, just the storm playing tricks on my eyes, a twisted branch or a shadow cast by something mundane. I moved closer to the window, peering out into the blackness, trying to force clarity where there was none. Another flash erupted, brighter this time, and the shape was still there, different from before, a little taller, a touch wider. It felt wrong, not quite belonging to the trees or the shifting rain. A cold prickle spread across my scalp, a warning I tried to push away. My mind scrambled for explanations. For any logical reason, a form like that could be standing out there in the deluge. It had to be a trick of the storm, a play of light and shadow, my imagination seizing on nothing. But then a third violent flash erupted, and the shape was there, closer to the house now, and for a terrifying instant it felt like it almost turned towards me. The lightning faded, and the shape was gone. Darkness reclaimed the yard, absolute again, and a wave of relief washed through me. It had just been the storm. I convinced myself of it, stepping away from the window, intending to finally leave the outside to its rage. I turned into the room, my gaze sweeping past the glass door that led to the patio. The door reflected the light from the hallway behind me. Another bolt of lightning tore through the sky. It was a powerful blast. The entire room blazed with light, and for a horrible instant the reflection in the glass door was clear. It was not my own face staring back. Behind my shoulder, close enough to feel a chill despite the glass, stood the dark form, towering. It was unmistakable. It had been inside all along. My earliest memories involved the steady light of candles, a practice my parents observed with devoted attention. They spoke of faith as a living flame, one that needed careful tending to survive in the world. I sat beside them on Sunday evenings, watching the tiny fires bloom and thinking of little else beyond the dancing shadows on the wall. It was a quaint family tradition, a harmless habit I witnessed without understanding its deeper meaning. My parents found comfort in the ritual, but I only saw bright points of light and felt the gentle warmth on my face. Their sudden departure created an absence in the house that year, a quiet emptiness where familiar routines once lived. I moved through the rooms with a hollow feeling, carrying a sense of duty for tasks I did not fully grasp. I lit a single candle for them one evening, a quiet gesture I felt compelled to make in the hushed house. My fingers brushed against a loose floorboard beneath the altar and found a small wooden box. Inside rested an array of ancient candles, each one distinct from the store-bought variety. Their scent was strong, carrying the fragrance of damp earth and something sweet, like forgotten spices. I took the box, not from a place of sorrow, but from a quiet sense of obligation. These were now mine to keep. The heartbreak arrived years later, a crushing weight that settled deep inside my chest. I walked through the days with a raw ache, a wound that refused to close. The world seemed to dim around the edges, and I found myself staring at walls, lost in the sharp agony of a love lost. My ex-lover, a man who had once promised forever, was gone from my life. His absence left a gaping hole, and I desperately craved his return. One evening, my gaze drifted to the wooden box tucked away in the closet, the inherited candles within calling to me with a strange, quiet pull. I reached for them, my fingers tracing the aged wax. I chose a single candle from the box, its scent of damp earth and forgotten spices filling the air around me. Under the cloak of night, I walked to his street, my steps quiet on the pavement. His window glowed with a warm interior light. I carefully placed the small candle on the sill, its tiny flame flickering against the glass. I watched the weak light dance, a silent plea forming on my lips. I wished for his return, for the empty space in my life to be filled again. I whispered the desire into the night air, a desperate prayer carried on the smoke. The next morning, the city newspaper lay open on my kitchen counter. His name, stark and undeniable, stared up from the black print. The article described a tragic accident, a sudden, irreversible end that occurred during the night. A knot tightened in my stomach, connecting the small flame I had lit to the devastating news. My breath caught in my throat. I read the words again, searching for something, anything, to lessen the shock. A strange thought bloomed in my mind, pushing aside the initial horror. My devotion had been answered. The flame had been offered, and a result had come. It was not the return I had envisioned, but a powerful outcome nonetheless. My faith had not failed. The confirmation of the candle's power rooted itself deep within my mind. A new purpose unfolded, quiet but insistent. I began to walk the city streets with a different gaze, seeing not just people, but candidates for the flame. The scope of its purpose widened beyond my own grief. I noticed the woman who wept on the park bench each day, her sorrow and ache. I observed the man who cheated his small customers, his deceit evident. I marked the old tenant who clung to his rundown apartment, his presence a burden on the neighborhood. Each evening I chose a candle, its earthy scent a familiar comfort. I carried it hidden, a secret weight in my coat, finding the perfect place. Sometimes it was a doorstep, sometimes an alley behind a business, sometimes a high ledge overlooking a street. The small flame ignited, a silent verdict cast into the night. It burned with steady intensity. I left it there, walking away with a strange calm. The city felt cleaner, more aligned. A twisted justice filled me, a peace earned through the quiet tending of the flame. I was setting things right, one flicker at a time. The city continued to offer its constant stream of candidates, each person presenting a new possibility for the flame, and I watched the decreasing number of candles in the wooden box with a growing worry. I felt a quiet, burning necessity for more wax, more wicks, more time to carry out my duties. My mother's old saying that faith was a flame needing constant care to stay alive in the world now echoed with a terrible, clear meaning. I recognized myself as an instrument, a quiet, ritualistic force of death tasked with an unending crusade that stretched into the foreseeable future. The compulsion had become part of my very being, guiding my gaze through the city, always searching for the next, for the countless others yet to come,